Who in their right minds wants to wake up early? I mean, do you know how much your life would change if you start doing that? Like, you won't be able to stay out late. Some of your friends might start hating you. You become boring. They feel like you're always saying no to plans. They feel like you don't want to play video games with them. Like, what are you doing? You're changing everything. But then other people are telling you, wow, you look happier. You look more fulfilled. What's going on? So ultimately the question is, do you really want to start waking up earlier, and do you want to feel more rested when you do it? A few years ago, I had the same thought. I started asking myself, what if I wake up just a little bit earlier so that I can get a jump with no distractions on my day? Like, what if I can do things before my friends wake up, and that way, once they're awake, we can just go out and enjoy the day, and I still did the work that I had to do. Well, it's been a bit over 2 years now where I've been consistently waking up somewhere between 6 to 9 a.m., 9 a.m. being my sleep in. And honestly, it's completely transformed my life. However, my goal with this video isn't just to explain how to wake up earlier. It's also how you can have more restful sleep while you're at it. So let me show you what I did.
I think she wanna love, she wanna love, she wanna love.
Number 1, follow your circadian rhythm. The popular theory that we all need 8 hours of sleep is a myth. It's a lie, it's fake, it's an average. Now, let me get into that. So the way that we got to 8 hours is by doing a study to see how much each person needs, because for each person it is different. And in just a little bit, I'll explain exactly how you can find how many hours you personally need. But in this study, they found people that require 7 hours, 7.5, 8, 8.5, 9 hours of sleep, whatever it might be, and it all averaged out to about 8 hours. However, our circadian rhythm works in increments of 90 minutes. So 8 hours doesn't really fall into that, which means that it is possible, although it is rare. Example, for myself, I find myself needing between 7 to 7.5 hours. 7.5 being that optimal, most energy, peak awareness, just amazing energy throughout the day. And that happens to fall into the 90-minute increments. So now how do we find how many hours you need? This is gonna be a little bit of trial and error, but I want you to keep in mind that we sleep for about 1/3 of our entire life. 33% of your life is going to be spent sleeping. So you wanna take this time to optimize it for the rest of your life, because going forward, you are gonna be doing this a lot. So here's what I recommend. Take a week and really focus on getting 7 hours of sleep a night. So if you have to be up at a certain time, make sure you go to bed about 7.5 hours before that at least, just so you have that time to fall asleep, and make sure you get those 7 hours in. Then write down, journal, how do you feel throughout the week? Do you feel like you have more energy, less energy? How do you feel going through that? Then try 8 hours. Mess around with it a little bit and then go through those notes and see what made you feel the best. Or if it's super obvious, just follow with that. But basically, you want to find exactly what is the most optimal amount of sleep for you. Tip number 2, sleep tracking. Now, this is completely optional, but I have been doing this for a few years now, and it has drastically helped my sleep. So if you have an Apple Watch, a Fitbit, anything that really tracks your heart rate, your sleep, anything that you could use, I really recommend you start paying attention to it. I've been doing this for a few years now, and when I started, I realized how poor my sleep quality was. When I originally started, the app that I'm using has a score out of 1,000, and I was averaging about 400 to 600 points a night. Like, it was very bad compared to the average user, even on that app, or the average person. It's just very poor quality sleep. So I started looking at how I can make my sleep better, and that's what I'm about to get into for you guys right now. So as I've been making all these changes in my life over the past few years, now my sleep quality averages somewhere between the high 800s to the mid 900s. Drastic difference. So how did I do that? The answer brings us to our 3rd tip, and that's environment. Now this is gonna have a few subsections, so if you guys want to check out the video chapters, feel free. There's also the timestamps in the description. But without further ado, let's get into this. Your environment is probably the biggest piece of advice that I could ever give. So this is something to pay close attention to, because you really need to set yourself up to be able to sleep well. The tips that I'll be going over are the most commonly repeated items I've seen from reading multiple books, listening to podcasts, reading articles, all my research put together. These are the most common things that people keep re-bringing up, and I think that's because they are the most important and the biggest game changers. Now, there's a lot of minor stuff where if you guys want a part 2 to this video, comment it down below and I'll gladly make that video. But in the moment, I'm gonna go over the top things that are gonna make the biggest changes for you right away. Tip number 1 is temperature. It's recommended to sleep in a cold room. Personally, I drop my room temperature down to about 18 degrees Celsius or 65 degrees Fahrenheit for the Americans watching. And a lot of articles might give you a range that is somewhere between 16 to 19 degrees Celsius, but the one they all unanimously found the best is to be 18 degrees or 65 degrees Fahrenheit. And this is backed by a Healthline, Sleep Foundation, or any article you really want to look into. Odds are they're going to suggest the exact same number. So I really recommend you guys try this out. Once again, with everything that I'm suggesting, it's a lot of trial and error. You have to see what works for you. But personally, I've learned to love sleeping in the cold, and it truly does make a big difference for your sleep. Tip number 2 is darkness. And I've really tried to make my room as dark as it could be so that I don't have any light or anything bothering my sleep. And I thought I was doing pretty good up until this summer where I went on a trip with my friends up north, and this cabin had complete darkness. You can't even see the smallest shadow. It's just dark. And the sleep over there was probably the best I've ever had in my life. So although that was really good, let me get into what I did for my personal room over here. I took out my whole recording/gaming setup. If you guys go back to my old videos, you'll see that it was in my room, but now it's over here. And I find it's a lot better to have it here regardless. But even then, from my room now, I don't see any of the lights. I don't see anything, and nothing affects me. Tip number 2, if you have a window that is facing, let's say, a street where there's like street lights or anything, then I highly recommend getting blackout curtains. If you have a window that's really not facing much, then you can always just use regular blinds. It's completely up to you, but I recommend making it as dark as you possibly can be. You don't want to see any light. You don't want there to be anything. The darker, the better. And if there's really nothing you could change in your room, the easiest solution is just to get an eye mask, wear it when you sleep, and that's going to change everything for you. So that's a quick and easy solution if you guys want to do that instead. Another thing that I find ties into this is about 1 to 2 hours before going to sleep, I normally turn off all the lights and even turn my phone brightness all the way down and have night mode on so that there's really no light that hits my eyes, and it tells my body that, hey, it's time to wind down, it's time to go to sleep, time to rest. And that way my body kind of gets into the habit of like, okay, it's time to start winding down, rather than your body not knowing from all the blue light that we have and all our screens and everything that is bothering us these days. Completely different from how it used to be even 30 years ago. One more tip that I'm going to give for that section is if you want to be extreme, you could get blue light blocking glasses. I did this for a little bit. I found that for me, it's just easier to turn my brightness all the way down and put night mode on. Has similar effects. But like I said, it all depends on what you really like for yourself. Tip number 3, exercise. What? How does exercise help sleep? Those are two different things. No. Basically, when you exercise, you're increasing your heart rate, which means that when you sleep, normally what tends to happen is your heart rate dip is even bigger, which means that a lot more of your sleep will actually be restful sleep as your body's trying to recover. Your body signals to itself, okay, I need this time to recover the muscle. I need this time to really recover properly so I can function the next day. So our body works in amazing ways, and I find that exercising dramatically helped my sleep in so many different ways, and I monitor this using the sleep tracking. My heart rate dip and my restful sleep is much better on the days where I'm exercising rather than when I'm not. At the same time, you don't want to work out too close to sleep. It should maybe be 6 hours before bed at least. That's my personal suggestion because working out gives you the energy boost. That's why a lot of people recommend to do it in the morning so you have the energy for the day. But no matter what time you're exercising at, just make sure it's not too close to when you sleep. Number 4, diet. And I feel like I just didn't know a better word when I was writing this, but essentially I don't mean like a strict weight loss diet. Like that's not what I'm suggesting at all. Instead, I'm trying to focus on what you're consuming, especially closer to bedtime. What you're eating, what you're drinking makes a very, very big difference. There's a general rule of thumb out there. You might have even seen it on Instagram where they say not to eat at least 3 hours before bed. And it also suggests not consuming caffeine about 6 hours before bed. Personally, I'd go as far as to say 8. I know for myself, it's literally 10 plus because I'm not big on caffeine. Therefore, every time I do consume it, it hits me much harder. So for me, it takes about 10 hours before bed until I'm finally able to fall asleep. There's a huge misconception when it comes to coffee, and I want to address it right now. Coffee does not give you energy, all right? Caffeine, all it does is block the receptors in your brain to tell your mind that you're tired. So your body will still feel drained, you'll still feel tired, but you won't be able to fall asleep because those receptors are blocked. That's all caffeine does. Now, where do you get the energy from? Most people that drink coffee put a lot of sugar in it, and that's where that little energy boost comes from. Caffeine itself simply blocks the receptors. It does not actually give you energy. Pay attention to this. I feel like there's too many people that don't know about how caffeine really works. So if that's a video that you guys want me to make, comment it down below and I'll make a full video talking about caffeine usage and how to properly optimize using caffeine to your benefit. I found out all of these things and I've realized them to be true from reading several different books about sleep or nutrition and really seeing the difference there. Number 5, finally we're a little bit out of the environment chapter there, but basically number 5 is habits. Our brains do amazing jobs at associating certain actions with feelings. Example, let's say you really like eating chocolate. Why do you like eating chocolate? Because every time you eat it, you feel good, you feel happy, and therefore you want to eat it more often. Well, relating that to sleep, whenever you go to your bed and you just watch movies, watch shows, FaceTime your friends, do homework, do whatever, but you're in bed, you're signaling to your brain that when you go to bed, it's to do something. It's not to sleep, it's to really like watch a show, watch a movie, do whatever you might want to do. And I've seen this in my experience when I was much younger. I stopped this habit somewhere in the middle of high school, but basically I've experienced this, and when I read about it, I was like, oh my god, that makes so much sense. And there's a lot of my friends that think that they just can't fall asleep. Like, they always question how I fall asleep so fast, because they tell me that they spend hours turning in bed and they can't sleep, and it's because they start using their bed as like a chill spot rather than using it for the only two reasons you should be using your bed: sleep and something that I'm not going to mention on this channel, but you guys probably get it. And the beautiful part is that science backs this up. So stop this terrible habit of just watching shows in your bed and doing whatever you want in your bed. Just separate those things in your mind, because it's becoming detrimental to your sleep and you might not even realize it. Woo! Alright, so I feel like that was a lot of information. Hopefully you guys took something away from it. This is what helped me in my experience. Comment down which tip was your favorite out of all of them and why. I'm really curious as to what got you thinking. And if you feel like there's something that I missed that might help others, please comment it down below as well. I really want to create a community where we all help each other become better versions of ourselves. Right now is the best time to take initiative and to make that growth in your life. So let's level up together. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please subscribe if you found this video valuable. Turn notifications on so you don't miss the next one, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.